The resurrection of Jesus Christ is the central claim of Christianity. If Jesus truly rose from the dead, it validates his identity as the Son of God and the hope of eternal life. But if it never happened, then, as the Apostle Paul said, our faith is in vain. 1 Corinthians 15:14. So, what evidence is there that the resurrection is a real historical event? 1. The empty tomb. All four Gospels testify that Jesus' tomb was found empty 3 days after his crucifixion. Even critics of Christianity in the first century acknowledged the empty tomb. The Jewish leaders claimed the disciples had stolen the body, Matthew 28:13. Yet this explanation falls short. Roman guards were stationed at the tomb, and the disciples were fearful and in hiding. If the body had been stolen, Christianity would have collapsed immediately once it was produced. 2. Eyewitness testimonies. The New Testament records that Jesus appeared to individuals, small groups, and even large crowds after his death. Paul notes in 1 Corinthians 15:6 that Jesus appeared to more than 500 people at one time, many of whom were still alive when Paul wrote, inviting skeptics to verify his claims. These were not vague visions, but physical encounters where Jesus ate with his disciples and invited them to touch his wounds. 3. The transformation of the disciples. Before the resurrection, the disciples were broken, fearful, and hiding. Yet after encountering the risen Christ, they boldly preached the gospel, even under threat of death. Most of them were martyred for their testimony. People do not willingly die for something they know is a lie. Their courage suggests they were absolutely convinced that Jesus had risen. The birth of the early church. Within weeks of Jesus' crucifixion, thousands in Jerusalem believed in him as the risen Messiah. This explosion of faith occurred in the very city where he was crucified and buried. If his body were still in the tomb, or if the resurrection were a fabrication, Christianity would have been easily debunked at its start. Outside the Bible, early historians like Josephus and Tacitus acknowledged Jesus' execution and the claims of his followers that he rose. The resurrection cannot be dismissed as legend. It was proclaimed immediately after the events, not centuries later. Nor can it be explained as mass hallucination. Hallucinations are individual, not collective. Ultimately, the resurrection stands as the best explanation for the empty tomb and the eyewitness reports. For believers, it is not only a historical event, but the foundation of our hope. Because he lives, we also shall live. John 14:19.